Compression is a versatile tool that lets you smooth out audio, make it louder, and give your mixes and performances a little more punch. Compression really does two things. It reduces the peaks of your audio signal, and then the second optional step is that it increases the overall volume of that audio signal. So you kind of round off the peaks and then you turn up the volume so you can make it even louder. So let's hear that in action. Here we've got Logic, and I've got two drum tracks. One is uncompressed, one is compressed. And I've tried to make them just about the same output. So here's our output meter. We can see on the scale here that they both get up around, I think, around -20. So let's have a listen here. So you can definitely tell a difference there. I've really compressed the second one so that the softs, the quieter parts are much louder, and the louder parts are not quite as loud. So if you're looking at the meters here, you saw this first section, the uncompressed, which look here, that's mislabeled. The first section, it was actually peaking higher than the second one. So those snare hits were really getting up above 20, but then our second compressed section was just down below 20, but it seemed louder. So it just kind of, we raise up everything, and overall, our ears hear that things there's more signal there. The quieter parts are louder, and then the louder parts come down a bit. So let's hear that, just kind of a faster back and forth between the uncompressed on the left and the compressed on the right here. So you can really hear the hi-hat is evened out. The room sound really comes out huge. You can kind of hear just everything, the thwacking of the drums. It really sounds really large. So that's kind of an effect of the drum compression. You bring up those quieter, the lower level signals like the reverb that you normally wouldn't hear quite as prominently, and those come out. And the amount of compression I have on there is definitely something where I'm making it obvious there, and that's kind of an effect. It's an obvious thing that you would want on there. So let's go back to seeing how this actually works. We've got a signal here. We can pretend it's a mix of some kind of audio that we've done, and over time, T here on the x-axis, we start out quiet and we come up. Volume is going higher and higher, and we eventually come up here and we peak. And this is as loud as we can go up here. And so this is nearly as loud, so we're not going to be able to increase the volume level of this track at all. But let's say that we want to. So we're going to bust out some compression on it. And first step, you kind of go through a set routine when you're setting up a compressor. The first thing you do is you set a threshold. Threshold is going to be marked like a -10 or a -5. So why is it negative? This is 0 up here. As loud as you can get is 0 decibels full scale, they call that. So in the digital world, the loudest you can go is up to full scale. So we measure things in how far they are from that full scale. So let's say we set this at -10, so that's going to be 10 decibels below as loud as things can go. So once we've set that threshold, anything that's above it, coming over the threshold, we're going to act on it. So after we set our threshold, we are going to set a ratio by which we reduce the incoming audio. So the ratio says if an audio signal coming in to the compressor goes over the threshold that we've set, then it's going to be reduced. So if we have a ratio set, and these are what the ratios look like, 2 to 1. So for every 2 decibels of signal coming in, we are going to reduce it, and only 1's going to come through. So you can flip it around your head and say 1/2. We're only going to get half the signal. So here's our new 2 to 1 ratio gain reduced signal. So if we do 4 to 1, it's going to be down lower here. 8 to 1 is going to be only an eighth of the signal that was above, and then once we get up into 10 to the 20s, then we're getting into limiting. So we're going to reduce by the ratio. We call that gain reduction. I just said that a second ago, and so the ratio is, again, input level to output level. So 2 in, we're going to get 1 out. We're going to half it, 1/2. And this is what we call gain reduction. So we are now getting gain reduction. We're going over the threshold and we're reducing it by the ratio. So that's what you need to remember. Set the threshold and reduce by ratio. So now that we've done that, we've really essentially just made our audio quieter. And that's probably not what we're after. Sometimes we might be. If some performance we recorded was a little too wild and we just want to round off those peaks, then this is fine. We can just get away with using a compressor to round out the peaks and to kind of get rid of those erratic performances. But we're going to take it a step further and pump up the total volume. So here's another example. We've got our 0. We don't want to cross this. So we can't just jack the whole waveform up. We're going to have to cut it off. So we're going to round out these tops, round out these tops, round off that one, and then we're going to bring the whole thing up a bit. So it's going to look like this. Bam. So this is what we call applying makeup gain. So the gain is going to make up some of the reduction. I guess that's how you explain that. The reduction of these peaks have made them look like this, and now we're going to apply a little makeup gain to the whole thing, and then our peaks are going to end up, or our whole wave is actually going to end up looking like this, up higher and getting closer to 0. So now the overall sound has been smoothed out on the tops, and then the overall thing has been made louder. So it has a louder sound, and it also has a bit of a different sound. So that's it. You now know mostly everything about what there is to do with compression, except attack, release, knee, peak versus RMS, look ahead, side chain, all this stuff. There's a bunch of other settings that you'll find on most compressors, but the most important out of this set is the attack and the release. So the attack defines how long until the gain reduction kicks in. So if you want to let some of that snare come through, then you want to have your attack a little bit longer. If you don't want to hear it, then you just you put it down to 0 or whatever your lowest attack is. And the release just says how long until that gain reduction is going to stop reducing the signal. The rest of these are a little more technical. You may not need to use them. It's kind of harder for your ears to even hear the difference, like with this knee, and then other things are even more advanced. So if your unit has some of these options, then you can look at it. But like I said, you can get through about 99% of the things you need to do with a compressor with just threshold, ratio, and makeup gain.